Cam Fancher is rising above the pack in the QB race at UCF. Could he be the answer to Scott Frost's QB problem?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Turn us up, turn us on. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, Andrew Glucov, a.k.a. Stat Boy Drew, to talk a little UCF football today. On today's show, we're going to talk about Cam Fancher possibly rising above the pack to be QB1. And then we'll talk about how secure he'll feel once he does finally win it. And then we've got a little bit of a recruiting-ish update on Kane Archer that we're going to talk about at the end of the show. Let's start with Cam Fancher. We reported right here on Locked On UCF last week that Cam Fancher seemed to be outperforming his peers. Scott Frost said to the media that no one had really taken a hold of the job. But as you get closer to week one, somebody has got to stand out because you're going to have to narrow down the reps for your QB1 here pretty soon as you go into week one game prep. It seems like that guy is Cam Fancher. We saw some videos of him working with the ones during the media viewing period. Cam Fancher, the experienced grizzled vet, coming in and possibly taking the job by the horns. I love it. Cam Fancher could be the answer at QB.
Well, someone had to rise up eventually, and you had three very different players. You had more of a pocket passer in Tayven Jackson, who just didn't have all that much, playing time. Yeah, Jacurri Brown, who we all have seen him in the black and gold. A great runner, not a great passer. Then you have Cam Fancher, who's kind of a bit of both. He's a dual threat quarterback. He can tuck the ball and run. Had over 100 carries for 466 yards back in 2022 when he was still with the Marshall Thundering Herd. So he brings in quite a bit of experience. Played in 34 games, obviously 22 and 23. He was the guy. And 24, he was the guy for majority of the season. Now, a lot of people would say, well, his year at Florida Atlantic last year, not so good. But here's the truth. It was a bad team. Doesn't matter. It gets to the point where it doesn't matter how good you are. If the team around you is bad, there's not a whole lot you can do. But he was able to throw for over 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Prior year, 2,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. While it doesn't sound great, it's kind of the best they have. This has been a bit of a bridge year. Fancher only has 1 year of eligibility at this point. He's here as basically a rental, and and that's fine. That's fine. There's a couple of really talented freshmen coming, supposedly coming in as long as things hold. Obviously, we're going to be talking about one a little later today. So right now, it's just kind of holding its own. And by at least getting someone in that position as QB1, you can then start to develop that chemistry, that timing, that cadence, as well as alter your playbook a little bit. Because if you recall, Scott Frost talked about, we'll work with whoever we have. Well, if you have 3 different players, they have different skill sets. Obviously, the playbook changes a bit for each one. One can run more, one can throw more. But in Fancher's case, he can do a bit of both, which I think actually plays more to what Scott Frost looks for in a quarterback. If you look at every quarterback he's worked with, they by and large are dual threat quarterbacks, or at least have at least a somewhat decent ability to tuck the ball and run.
Look, in the 2023, you have a little bit of a bigger sample size for Cam Fancher, 308 attempts at a 65.6% completion percentage. That's the number I'm really paying attention to. Now, in 2024, last year, we saw that completion percentage go down a very significant amount, as did the yards. His yard per average throw up just a tick. But look, Can he take care of the football? That's going to be the question for me. This is something that Scott Frost talked about when talking about who would eventually win that QB job. Is can they get UCF into good positions on the field, make the right decisions? And sometimes that's not always making a play. That's knowing when to throw the ball away, when to get down, when to make the right play. Isn't always the flashy play, Andrew. Sometimes the right play is the play that gets you to the next series, but protects the football and protects field position, something that UCF is going to need to do at a high level here. So Cam Fancher, as I mentioned, 65.6% in 2023. We saw that drop sub 60% in 2024. I have to believe that Mackenzie Milton's tutelage here is going to have a marked effect on his accuracy and his decision-making.
Well, it has to. I mean, Milton is one of the good things about Mackenzie Milton is he came, in as a freshman, had a lot of mechanical issues, pushed the ball. As a result, he floated a lot of balls past receivers and had to work on his mechanics and figure out how to get that right touch. Well, you learn how to do it. And then during this time, you learn how to teach others. So, he's going to learn how to, work on mechanics from Milton, as well as you said, decision-making. That's probably the biggest thing is decision-making, when to tuck the ball and run. That was one of Brown's issues. He was thinking run first. And, there were times where he could have made a throw and was already tucking the ball and running. So you need to be able to kind of weigh when to run, how many reads, how fast can you make your reads? Can you decipher the defense, pre-snap? And, when things start breaking down and you have to pull the ball down, are you still looking downfield? How long do you wait before you go across the line of scrimmage? There's a lot of things that a quarterback has to do in a lot, and a lot of things, very small time window, because there are some hungry defensive linemen that are coming after you and they want to eat. The last thing you want to be is a meal.
Yeah, look, you don't want to be a meal for the defense, certainly. So time to throw is a specialty stat that PFF keeps, that we'll keep an eye on this season for UCF quarterbacks. Generally speaking, you want to have the ball out of your hands under 2.5 seconds. If you're holding the ball much longer than that and your name is not Cam Newton, it's a disaster. So we want to see them have quick releases, make good decisions, but take your time and go through their progressions. Just do it under 2.5 seconds. Cam Fancher appears to be leading the pack there. But look, if he wins the job, Andrew, how secure will he feel in it? How secure will Scott Frost feel with him in it? We'll talk about that next on Locked on UCF. This episode of Locked on UCF is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Guys, visit Monarch Money to help manage your finances today. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks or property investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money, and it's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser, or for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Andrew, how secure will QB1, maybe Cam Fancher, feel after he's potentially won the job? Scott Frost left open the possibility that the QB battle could go into game one. But somebody's going to go out first and take snaps. How quickly we see another quarterback might tell the story of how secure that job is. Give us some historical perspective on Scott Frost and how he handles his QB battles. When he picks a guy, does he stick with him?
By and large, yes, he does. In 2016, started with Justin Holman. That was a case of Holman was the experienced guy. He got hurt, and Mackenzie Milton came in, and did well enough that as once the season wore on, originally the plan was to redshirt Milton, but they had other quarterbacks on the team. They got beat up. So Milton coming in as a freshman was more on necessity than anything else, but he looked decent enough that that it was decided that Frost was going to kind of ride him the rest of the season. It was very up and down. Obviously, expectations were very low. This was a team coming off a 0-win season, so there wasn't a lot of pressure. And you saw flashes of greatness out of Milton. And then you saw times where he just was very frustrating. They go to a bowl game. He absolutely, the team just kind of wets the bed against Arkansas State. The crowd was booing, wanting to put Justin Holman back in. It didn't matter what UCF did. They were not the better team that day. In fact, it was such a bad experience. Mackenzie Milton nearly left UCF over it. Decided not to. And the rest is history. When Frost went to Nebraska, they brought in Adrian Martinez, and he rode him. He used Martinez as the guy. So Frost experience generally is you have a quarterback and you're gonna run with him, and so unless he falters spectacularly, I don't think the pressure is going to be too difficult to muster through for Cam Fancher, should he be officially named the starter. Obviously, we hear things, we see things, but until an announcement formally comes out, something can change. And until then, it's really just conjecture of is he the guy, is he not the guy? But I think it's fair to assume, based on what we're seeing, what we're hearing, that things are starting to tilt towards Cam's way, and should he get officially named the starter, which I think will happen before game one. I feel pretty good about that. I don't think unless he falls flat on his face, I don't think he's going to be at too much risk of being replaced all that quickly.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I wonder how much rope he's going to give his QB1 to make mistakes, since he seems very focused on protecting the football, and what that looks like for QB2. Does he play? Let's walk through game one just for giggles here. If UCF, let's say, is up big by, I don't know, maybe like the 10-minute mark in the third quarter, do we see QB2? Do you give them some work in game, or do you continue to ride with your starter and let them continue to rack up game experience, under center?
Let's assume UCF's winning this game handily. I think starters will get about 3/4 of play, and then into the fourth quarter, and then if it's a 4-touchdown lead plus, which potentially could be, potentially it's a close game. It's really hard to tell where this team's going to go in game one. UCF has more talent. That doesn't mean they're going to be winning or winning big in this game. It's you have a home field advantage. UCF, the bounce house, a really tough place to play. They can make a lot of noise. It's designed to steel stadium. It's designed to reverb the noise. It gets loud there, and it shakes, and it's beautiful in its own, if it's in its own way. But that creates a powerful home field advantage that can really disrupt players. Even good players had trouble with it at times. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati flat out said the hardest place he ever played was at UCF, and he played against Notre Dame away. He's been to some big stadiums, but and UCF is the one that he remembers the most. So I don't think that they'll get too far into the fourth quarter, but if they're up 4 or 5 scores, I could see second unit coming in and getting some good playing time, getting the feet. Because remember, QB2 and 3 are not seniors; they've got more time. Whereas Fancher, this is it. So getting those guys a little extra game experience is not a bad thing. In fact, I think in the case of Tayven Jackson, he needs it. I think that's one of the things that's kind of dogging him, is that he doesn't have a whole lot of game experience. Brown has had more over the years, but I mean, Brown is very limited as a thrower. So, I want to cultivate Tayven Jackson's ability to throw and give him a little, work on his legs a little bit, make him a little more comfortable running the ball, over time. This is a good time to do it. And then week 2 against North Carolina A&T, that should also be a really good opportunity for the second unit to get in there with playing time. If that game is a blowout, I don't even think the starters make it to the fourth quarter. I could see the second unit coming in, but against Jacksonville State, I don't think Frost is going to pull the starters out before the end of the third.
Yeah, look, I think that it's always a good idea to get your potential backup some real in-game experience. Tayven Jackson is a guy that has played at the P4 level. A lot of us assumed that he would be the front runner for the job. Cam Fancher said, "Not so fast. I'm here. Pay attention to me." But yeah, this is going to be a fascinating discussion as we get into the season. Hopefully, maybe a simpler one if the guy that they pick plays well enough that it's not a discussion. And if he stays healthy and produces numbers, going to be fun to watch. But look, this is not the only QB we're talking about today. Another QB, one that we interviewed right here on Locked On UCF, made a good list. And we're going to talk about why that's a big deal next on Locked On UCF. Kane Archer is an All-American. Preseason.
All-American.
And preseason All-American. Kane Archer. He actually DM'd this to me. Wanted to make sure that we were aware. Toot your own horn, young man. I love it. Kane Archer
he earned it.
The high school football All-Americans offense 2025 preseason by Rivals. He joins Brady Smeagol, I think that is, who is committed to Michigan as one of 3 quarterbacks on this list. Now, Archer, a 3-star QB who may be a little overlooked by a lot of schools. And when we watch his tape and listen to him talk, I could not help but think, Andrew, people are sleeping on Kane Archer. The people who do the evaluation.
A lot of people are sleeping on Kane Archer.
Talk to me about making this list if you're Kane Archer. I want to point out he's the only 3-star on the list. Everybody else are 4 and 5 stars. They took Kane Archer and they put him on the list with a bunch of his 4 or 5-star brethren. I think this is a big deal. And I think that it shows that if you're Scott Frost and Mackenzie Milton, you have the eye to evaluate at a high level. So where everybody else may be missing the not so obvious talent, you are finding it. And that's going to be important here for them until they show proof of concept and people see what it looks like in Orlando under them. But I think this is a big deal, man. I think it shows these guys are evaluating talent at a high level.
Absolutely. But this is a double-edged sword because he's no longer flying under the radar. That 3-star might change to a 4 pretty soon.
True.
You don't get put on a list like this by chance. He threw for 3,800 yards, 57 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions last year, and ran for almost 800 with another 10 scores. He did it all, up in Arkansas, and you can't deny that. So the fact he's a 3-star, it shows one, he's underrated, and I think with him being on this list, that's going to change. I would not be surprised to see him bumped up to a 4-star. On the flip side, like you said, it shows that Scott Frost and Mackenzie Milton are doing a good job at talent evaluation, finding good players, going after them. But now UCF has to keep him. Obviously, you spoke to Kane. You really were really impressed with the young man. He was a great interview to listen to, and he said all the right things. Now, with all chances are he's going to get a lot more big schools knocking on the door. Does he ride with UCF, who won him over early before he got all this notoriety, or are some of these other big name school is going to be able to woo him away? That's the real question. And you know what? Either way, you want nothing but success for him. If he decides to honor, his current commitment and stick with UCF, great. That's awesome. But I like this kid, even if he ends up at a different school, they're able to, be wooed away. You know what? You still wish him nothing but the best. So I hope he has a great senior year. I hope he gets the 4-star. Obviously, let's put the black and gold goggles on a little bit. I want him to stay with his commitment to UCF, but if he doesn't, I'm still happy for the guy. And this is something to be really proud of. I'm glad he sent it to you because one, it means he was thinking of you, and two, it shows that. Yeah, isn't that something? Yeah, that's important. He was thinking of you, and two is the fact that people pay attention to this stuff, and while the season's about to start, I mean, be proud. It's really a cool accomplishment to be on one of these preseason All-American lists. I mean, I was never an All-American for anything. You weren't an All-American for anything. So, I mean, the fact someone else is, hey, that's awesome. So,
yeah. Look, I like
proud,
man. I like what you had to say about, look, man, if he chooses someplace else, we wish him well. I think that's an important perspective. I have a little bit of a different one. Stick with UCF, young man. And if you go somewhere else, I wish the worst for you. Do not break your commitment. Stick here. Stay here in Orlando. I'm joking. Look, he reaffirmed his commitment to UCF. He said that, look, man, money is not the most important thing to me. He feels like if he plays well, the money will take care of itself. Certainly, I can't see UCF not taking care of this young man if he plays up to his potential. So it's not that there's no money at UCF. They may not have the big dollars that some of these schools have. But, if he plays well in year one, suitors are going to come knocking to try to, like you said, I don't think you have to. I don't think wooing him before he commits is the worry. The worry would be if he comes here and plays well, and then there's going to be big money in the portal. Does he say no to that money? Because sometimes that's where I'm a little bit more understanding when it's life-changing money. Now, right? As a teenager, depending on your family situation, money that could change your family's life. Some of these kids are getting in NIL money. So going to be interesting to watch. Kane Archer makes Rivals preseason All-American list. Like, as I mentioned, only 3 QBs on the list, the only 3-star to make the list. And when you start making lists like this, it's likely that he might receive a 4-star somewhere down the road. He should receive
a 4-star.
Yeah,
57 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, come on, man.
Unreal. But can't wait to see him in a UCF uniform. Can't wait to see you back on Locked On UCF later this week to talk more UCF football. Guys, that's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. For your next listen, go check out our friends at The Portal Show. Our friend Brian Smith has the latest in portal signings, rumors, all the going-ons in college football right there in one place for you. You can find The Portal Show on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.